So hello everybody and welcome. My name is Alison Thornburn. I'm co-founder of the Barrier-Free Finance Initiative, which is a not-for-profit dedicated to advancing financial inclusion of people with disabilities. And I'll be the moderator of the session today. So in this session, we'll share case studies of best practices for disability-inclusive finance from three financial services providers who are pioneers and champions of disability inclusion. And we're very fortunate to have three experts with us today to share these case studies. So Mr. Luis Fernando Sanabria, the CEO of Fundación Paraguay, Ms. Lydia Bafor-Awa, the Director of International Programs at Opportunity International, who will share the case study of Opportunity International's partner, Opportunity Bank Uganda Limited. And Ms. Sophie Duchenois, who's the Global Economic Inclusion Specialist from Humanity and Inclusion, who'll share the case study of HI's collaboration with Palmis Microfinance Social, or PMS, in Haiti. So before we start the case studies, I'm going to give a brief introduction about the importance of disability-inclusive finance, before handing over to each of our panelists to give a brief presentation about their case study. And then after that, we'll have a Q&A session. And then finally, we'll share some information and resources for financial service providers that they can help in their own disability inclusion journey. So to start then, just to set the context, I want to start with thinking about what is disability, that fundamental question. So the UN Convention for the Rights of Persons with Disability defines disability as being a function of individual impairment, which can be physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory, and barriers that are constructed by society. So that can be through inaccessible environments or discriminatory attitudes, for instance. And these two things together, impairment and barriers, are what defines disability, which prevents people with disabilities from participating fully and equally in society. So this is a social model of disability, which means that instead of focusing on a person's impairment as an issue that needs to be fixed, we focus on the barriers that prevent their participation and how we can remove those barriers. And it's actually a human rights issue. So people with disabilities have the same right to participate as everybody else. So it's how we can ensure they can access those rights. And it's also important to remember that this isn't a niche or issue. It's 16% of the global population that experience some disability. That's 1.3 billion people worldwide. And of that population, about 80% of people with disabilities live in developing countries. And of those, around about 75% are estimated to be women. And people with disabilities are more likely to experience poverty than people without disabilities. And again, we should remember that people with disabilities are present in every subgroup within the population. So whichever group you're targeting in financial inclusion strategies, there are people with disabilities within that group. So women, refugees, young people, farmers, they're all people with disabilities within those groups. So in order to fully achieve financial inclusion strategies, whatever your target segment, you need to think how you can reach the people with disabilities within that segment. Furthermore, people with disabilities are among the most financially excluded groups worldwide as a result of systemic exclusion across all spheres of life. So this systemic exclusion is deeply rooted in social norms, negative stereotypes of disability, and discriminatory attitudes. And in some cases, that even includes legal barriers to people with disabilities being able to obtain ID or obtain access to services. So what this means is that people with disabilities are excluded from access to education, to employment, and to economic opportunities. As a result, they often have lower levels of literacy, lower income levels, and lower confidence and self-esteem. And this in turn leads to lower levels of financial literacy, greater digital exclusion, higher rates of informal or self-employment, and a lack of access to collateral, all of which contribute to financial exclusion of people with disabilities. And all of those issues are magnified for women with disabilities who experience compounding disadvantage as a result of both their gender and their disability. And in the financial services sector itself, there are a number of factors which again contribute to the financial exclusion of people with disabilities. So at the ecosystem level, around the outside of this diagram, we know that many financial services actors have low awareness of disability inclusion as an issue. There's a lack of data that's collected about people with disabilities' need for and access to financial services. And there's limited policy and regulatory frameworks to ensure financial inclusion of people with disabilities. And underpinning all of this is that there's very little intersection or interaction between the financial inclusion and the disability inclusion sectors. And then at the level of service delivery by financial services providers, in the center of the diagram, there are multiple barriers for people with disability to access products and services. So these include inaccessible physical infrastructure, branches and ATMs, inaccessible digital interfaces. So while digital financial services can help to overcome those physical barriers, if they're not designed with accessibility in mind, they can create new barriers, particularly for people with visual or cognitive impairments. Often, the financial products and services don't meet the specific needs of people with disabilities. And people with disabilities are often unable to access information about financial services or attend financial literacy trainings because information and communication isn't available in accessible formats. And again, underpinning many of these other obstacles are social and attitudinal barriers and discriminatory attitudes. So financial services staff, in many cases, aren't trained to communicate effectively with people with different disabilities. And often they don't perceive people with disabilities as potential clients or as active economic actors. They see them more as passive recipients of grants. So now that we've explored the barriers facing people with disability to access financial services, let's hear from our panelists about 3 financial services providers who have overcome those barriers and embedded disability inclusion within their operations. So firstly, I'd like to invite Luis to share the case study of Fundación Paraguay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to start showing a video that explains what we have done with people with disability.
Para mí, ir a trabajar no era fácil, porque por ella que no se maneja bien colectivo y todo, por todos lados no puede ir ella por su discapacidad, le discriminan.
Cuando yo tenía 1 año me agarró poliomielitis, tuve 5 o 6 años de tratamiento y después se me diagnosticó que ya no podía caminar y hay mucha discriminación porque a mí nunca me ayudó la autoridad de acá, nada de eso. Yo procuro siempre.
Hace más de 10 años, la Fundación Paraguaya impulsa oportunidades inclusivas en microfinanzas, buscando que las personas con discapacidad puedan, a partir del acceso a crédito, empezar o fortalecer un negocio existente y mejorar su calidad de vida. En lo que va del 2025, ya hemos otorgado más de 240 créditos en las 26 localidades donde operamos. Trabajamos con nuestras asesoras y oficiales, quienes hacen una búsqueda proactiva de personas con discapacidad como clientes y proveen seguimiento constante para que tengan éxito en sus negocios. Como complemento al crédito, las familias participantes aplican la metodología del semáforo de eliminación de pobreza para identificar oportunidades de crecimiento y mejorar su calidad de vida. Creamos alianzas estratégicas con organizaciones de y para personas con discapacidad, buscando fortalecer la gobernabilidad de las mismas y facilitando capacitaciones sobre educación financiera y derechos humanos.
La primera barrera que encontré fue el desconocimiento de la comunidad en sí sobre la discapacidad y la inclusión. El segundo desafío fue fortalecer las capacidades y la autonomía de las personas con discapacidad. Darle la confianza a ellos de que puedan sacar el crédito con la Fundación Paraguaya y de que puedan apuntalar a su emprendimiento y fortalecerlo con sus familias.
Me sirvió el crédito de la Fundación Paraguaya, me sirvió para comprar kit de limpieza. Cuando pago todo voy a sacar otro para poder vender otra cosa acá.
Yo le agradezco a la Fundación porque me da una mano y eso es lo que yo necesito en la vida, que alguien te pase una mano.
So let me go a little bit deeper on some details, and let me start by sharing with you our numbers. And those are important just to show that this is a financially sustainable operation. So we reach the best standards in microfinance, and that demonstrates that we can serve people and take care of their life without sacrificing the financial aspects of our operations. We used to work with our clients trying to financially include them, just that, trying to help them generate income with the theory of change that if they generate income, they will solve anything else in their life. And that was partially true because even though they overcame the national poverty line, they were still poor in different ways. For example, ignoring people with disability in their houses, just pretending they are not there or they don't have any, they are not a problem that they can solve, or having poor bathroom, poor kitchens, not vaccinating their children, lack of access to education, multidimensional poverty. And there are indexes that helps multilateral agencies and governments and even NGOs to measure poverty, multidimensional poverty, and they are good, but for those organizations, but mean nothing for poor families. They don't understand it and they can do nothing with the results of those indexes. So that's how we came with a new tool, the Poverty Stoplight, that allows families to easily self-evaluate their life using drawings and color codes in a way they can understand. So green, I overcome the poverty line. Yellow, I'm not. Red, I'm hunger line. Green, I save in a bank. Yellow, I occasionally save. Red, I never save. Green, I have a faucet in my house. Yellow, I have a well. Red, I have to carry the water from outside my place. In a very simple way, families can self-evaluate their life, and they get this dashboard. They can have it through WhatsApp and emails as well, but there are two problems. poor families, they don't have emails. And in WhatsApp, it gets lost in the groups where they get. So we prefer the printed version of that. So they have the dashboard on one side, and with the results, there is probably 20 red and yellows. They choose their 5 priorities, and they prepare a plan to overcome poverty. So it's a methodology we started 10 years ago. So this is a sample that I already mentioned. This is how the indicator related to drinking water looks like. Another one. We covered 6 dimensions, and this is the printed version I already mentioned. So in one hand, you have the family plan to overcome poverty, but you can aggregate the data. So as an organization to implement solutions. So for example, we do know that we have 22,000 clients that are yellow and 3,000 clients that are red in savings. So we can do something regarding that. And we know where they are because we geo-reference the information. So you can go exactly and provide what they need. So having the family plan in one side and the institutional solution on the other side, you can link both. This lady, Laura, for example, she lives in that point of my country, and she's been red since 27, red in savings since 27 of January last year. But Benedicta, she overcame that deprivation last July. So she moves from yellow to red. So technology allows us today to work with every family because poverty is different in every family. Okay. So that's how we found out that there were people with disability among our clients. And we started that program to integrate them into our normal operations. Until now, we reach almost more than 8,000 clients, and the program for people with disabilities is completely embedded in our operations. We did it through 4 phases. We started in the learning phases in 7 offices, and that was in 2012. With the support of the Center for Financial Inclusion of Acción Internacional. Then we scaled to 15 offices. Later, we went deeper, incorporating people with visual impairment. And today, we have it completely integrated into our operations. And it's very important to mention that the 3 first stages were subsidized for grants, but not anymore. Now it's normal part of our operations. I would like to mention 5 key inclusive practices. The first one is accessibility, so that's where you start, but it's not the most important one. It's not to build ramps is the easy part of this equation. You know? The second is very important, staff training to make them be aware of people with disability as a client. If you don't train your security guard, even though you have ramps, they won't welcome them. So this is very important. Number 3 is inclusive HR and recruitment policy. We incorporate people with disability in our team, but we also change the policies for recruitment we have. Number 4 is to integrate the system, the person with disability, in the sense that to be able to raise information about your support and your clients. And finally, partnership with an organization that works with people with disability. This is an important 2 ways education training. We are educated, we get education from them on how to deal with people with disability, but we also teach them how to deal with the financial service. Organizations that work with people with disability normally expect subsidized funds. And this is not the case. This is a financial operation to support those people. It's been an important challenge to learn, but also to teach them. I already commented some of our outcomes. Is important to emphasize that they perform at the same level in terms of overdue loan rate and loyalty as any other clients. Actually, mostly our portfolio is integrated by Village Bank's program. Group loans and people with disability are integrated into those groups. Lessons learned, I can mention many, but I will just focus on the main one. You don't have to change the financial products. That is not the thing. We offer the same financial product to everybody. What you change is the way you deliver the product, the way you advertise what you do, the way you have your procedures, the way they sign the documents they have to sign with you, and the way you sensitize your employees to be open to incorporate persons with disability. The most important result is this. Income poverty was reduced, and extreme income poverty was reduced as well as among our clients, and multidimensional poverty the same. So the reds and yellows among our clients last year was reduced for reds from 36% to 27%, and yellows from 37 to 33%. And this is the only thing that matters, how people's life change. Financial inclusion is just a tool. Having more banks accounts or having more people accessing to loans, that doesn't secure anything. We have to measure how we change their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Lou. I mean, I think that's a very inspiring vision that you see there from Fundación Paraguay about poverty elimination and how Fundación Paraguay has embedded disability inclusion within that mission. So thank you very much. And now I'd like to invite Lydia to present the experiences of Opportunity Bank Uganda Limited in mainstreaming disability inclusion.
Thank you, Alison. I think most of the problems you've already highlighted, so I'll not dwell so much on it. But I put these statistics there because for me it was quite striking that out of the population in Uganda, more than 6 million of the population are persons with disability. Yet when it comes to access to finance, fewer than 1% do have access to formal financial services. And we as financial institution providers, this is such a huge market, so it makes you wonder, why can't we tap into such a great opportunity to be able to serve this market? And the reasons have already been highlighted by Alison, so I will move on to what Opportunity International did then to help break some of these barriers. Similar to Louis, we realized that we cannot do it by our own. We work with disability inclusion organization. One thing that always strikes us was that nothing with us without them. So for them, it's really important that any solution that we come out with, they speak into the solution and they become part of the solution. So Opportunity International decided to partner with the Association of Microfinance Organization in Uganda, and then also partner with the Disability Inclusion, National Union of Disability Persons in Uganda as well, to pilot a program together back in 2013. Again, we started small, just trying to test the market and understand really the persons with disability. And based on that assessment, we then invited the expert to come and then do a diagnosis assessment with us, looking into our own processes, our systems, our operations, and to even our HR to just understand how are we integrating and mainstreaming persons with disability. By default, the way we design our program, the way we design our incentive system, is it including or excluding persons with disability? And one thing that became so clear from that analysis was the fact that when it comes to customer care, we were okay, but when it comes to our own internal systems and accessibility, we needed to do a bit more work about that. So that drove us to come out with our own disability inclusion action plan. And as you can see, again, I will use an example to highlight it, but I wanted to just highlight that it is really important for us that charity have to begin at home. So looking at within ourselves and our system and equipping ourselves was a great starting point. Then, as I have already said also, that it is really important that we bring on board the persons with disability to speak into their own situation and help us to understand how we can together address the barriers that they were facing as well. So I will just dive a little bit into that as well. So when it comes to the internal capacity building and systems, as I've said, after doing all the review, the diagnostic work, we came out of a capacity strengthening program to be able to strengthen and create awareness within the staff, from the board members to the senior management level to security level. Everybody associated or in contact with our clients, it was really important for us to train them to be able to understand and create the awareness in terms of how to support persons with disability. We did not let it also lie there. We then also wanted to preach what we are practicing. So we made it an effort. We talk about HR like you were doing, to also make sure that we are also recruiting persons with the disability as part of our staffing system, so they can help us to also understand and work with people. And that led to the second point about changing our policies and practices to make it more equitable when it comes to both in recruitment of our staff and also how we serve the clients that we are working with as well. And another great point that really came on board was the banking system, our structures and the fiscal structures. So I am so happy that based on that assessment, out of the 24, 25 branches of Opportunity Uganda have, now almost 22 out of that branches do have ramps. They make sure that the fiscal infrastructure is more accessible. And most recently, they have actually opened a branch office in a refugee settlement in Nakavary. We make sure that right from the onset, those places are more accessible to people. The tolls are much lower. The ATMs are at a height that anybody at all will be able to access that. So practically, we look into practical things that we can do to make life easier for everyone and to make sure that everyone is included in our program. And crucially, we also look at our financial products and services. I've said tailored financial products. We did not necessarily change the product offering, but we look at it, for example, when it comes to the account opening, we look at it and we realize that when it comes to the income level, the opening balance or the minimum balance to be able to open accounts seems to be quite higher. So as a result of that diagnostic analysis, what they did was to lower the minimum balances. So it's not only those persons with disability who can, but other people who are socially excluded can also benefit and be able to also open accounts with us as well. We did a lot of innovation when it comes to digital inclusion, but the bit that I wanted to touch on was we work through groups, Village Savings Association, VSLAs. So one of the things that they've tried to do is also try to digitize the group meetings. So groups that were taking them like an hour or 2 hours to go for those meetings, now they become more efficient and it takes them between 30, 45 minutes. Group meetings are done and they are gone. Then because they are recording also the digitizing the records, it makes it more transparent when it comes to the payout system. So again, making their life easier so that they can benefit from the financial services. But on the right side, the bit, so that was internally what we were doing, but we have to also look at it from the external perspective as well. And we did a lot of community sensitization activity because we talk about the stigma, the trust system. So it was really important. And we actually even changed the way we were communicating. So some of the things were done through drama, bringing some of these social voices so they can, it's more entertaining, but again, they can pick up on the lessons that we are trying to portray as well. We look at our financial education materials to see how do we deliver this. So we tailored it, making sure that it's coming. We have illustrations, recordings, we do a lot of role play, how we deliver those services so that everyone can benefit from it as well. And one cool thing that we did, which I really like from my impact perspective, was doing the participatory video. So it basically gave a video, a camera to somebody to narrate their own story and what they see to be most important to them. And once we do that, we then showcase it and bring all the different stakeholders, government people, community leaders together for them to tell their story in real life for them as well. So I found that to be quite interesting. So I thought I would just sum that one up with this particular story. And again, it goes to support the point that you are making. Mr. Joseph, for him, he did not trust the banks at all with all the challenges. He thought that banks are not meant for persons with disability. It was meant with those who do not have that kind of challenges. But one thing the Opportunity International did that I forgot to mention was the fact that we recruited financial inclusion officers specifically tailored to support persons with disability, either through financial literacy training or linking them up with the banks, helping them to open bank accounts. So one of these persons approached him and walk him through the processes and make it much easier for him to open it. And now, as you can read from his story, he now believes in the bank, and because he's been saving now, he feels like he has a much better future and is included in the financial landscape. And then the last bit I wanted to really touch on, we cannot really talk about the issue of inclusion and exclusion without really touching on gender. So we know that persons with disability, as we said, have barriers, but women have a more extreme barriers, again, to go with that. So to be able to do that, Opportunity International then partnered with the National Union of Women with Disability, who really understand the people that they are working with to help us to look at our product. As you rightly said, we need to learn from them, and they have a lot to also teach us. So we were humble enough to go to them to learn from them and then use that to kind of tailor our product and services to be able to serve these women. And I will end up with this story from Beatrice. So Beatrice, at the moment, as you see her inspirational story, that disability is not inability. So before then, she is a widow, not a widow, but a divorced person with 3 children. Unfortunately, she was not had the opportunity to have education because of some of the barriers that she had. Unfortunately, again, the husband left her because of a disability. So he started learning about sewing. He was a seamstress, but because of the hardship, he has to actually even give the 3 children that he has, give them to the care home. But then she met Opportunity International people. They worked with her, and then she managed to start her tailoring businesses again. And as the income was becoming higher, she then managed to then go back for her case now. And she's now creating additional jobs for other people. But what is really important was also the training, again, non-financial service training, making her feel like the self-worth and self-confidence that actually inspired her to also stand within the community. And now she's a counselor within the community and helping to recruit other people within the community. So this goes to show the importance of breaking those barriers and making sure that persons with disability are also included in the work that we are doing. So this is just a summary. I will not go into those highlights, but we really managed to reach so many people, not just the persons with disability, but we should not also forget about the caregivers, because not everyone can do those physical work, but their carers also need that kind of support. So as we came out with our strategy, we're not just focusing just on the persons with disability, but also looking at the caregivers and their family to make sure that they are all supported within the work that we are doing. So I'll sum up with just some of the key lessons. As you can see from the story from Mr. Joseph, it takes a bit of time for the banks to trust persons with disability and for persons with disability to trust people. But one of the key things that we help us to do is to really partner with persons with disability organizations so that we can understand them and they can understand us, prepare them. When you want to go in to open a bank account, what does it take? So things like that was really important. And that goes back to my second story point about the importance of having dedicated staff that have been trained, that live within the community, that can help them in terms of opening an account or when it comes to the loan terms, explaining it in a language and a term that they can understand. I have also said that we are in the age of digitalization. It's really important, but it also takes a bit of time. We should not assume that, because sometimes most of these apps and AIs are coming out, but we've forgotten that some people don't even have that basic phones in the first place. So as we are designing products, we have to also be very aware of that gap, data gap that we have, so we help to break those ones as well. And finally, I'll end up with that crucial point that for us, it was really important for us to gather the data, because if you don't gather the data, then you will not be able to manage the situation. So as part of this program, we managed to incorporate the Washington short questions into our program so that at any point in time, we know within our portfolio, analyze and see how many or what is the percentage of people with disability we are serving and things like that. And that will help us to then formulate the right policies to support them as well. And lastly, I've said that the inclusion process is like a cycle. We learn about it, provide the services, and then go back to them again and see whether it's working. If it's not working, then we tweak it to make sure that it's serving everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lydia. I think that really illustrates a very holistic approach and one that's rooted in true inclusion and partnership. So thank you for sharing that with us. And now I'll invite Sophie to present her final case study outlining the partnership between HI and PMS.
Thank you, Alison. So hello, everyone. So on my side, I want to bring you on a journey of supporting a microfinance in Haiti to be inclusive. So I want to explain a bit the process we have done to be able to select the microfinance we work with, the process we do with them, and what was the result of them for the person with the disability, but also for the financial institution. So when we start this project in Haiti, we didn't have to work with a specific partner. So we first do a diagnostic to be able to understand better the context of the finance inclusion within the country, and after to find the partner we will work with. So of course, and it will be a lot of repetition, so maybe I will not go so in deep on that, but we can see that people with disability was just excluded from the financial services. They were like invisible, so they were not considered as a segment market. And it exists different barriers at institutional level, so barrier of communication, barrier of mobility, but also barrier of trust. Trust in the capacity of person with disability of repayment. And on the side of the beneficiary, we realized also that it was low confidence in managing financial products, which go with a low experience with financial products. If you don't have experience with something, you have less confidence. So it was a very linked context. So here, when we have done the context analysis, we do interview with different institutions. It was interesting. To be support, to be more inclusive. And we define some criteria to the best way to choose the partner we want to work with and decide to work with Palmi. So I will not go on the very deep detail, but just explain a bit why do we consider to work with Palmis. And one of the big things of Palmis, it was the strong social mission they have. They were already working with low-income people. And so it was not just, I would like to work with persons with disabilities. They were already taking action to work with low-income people which a big percentage of the person with disability was also part of this category. So the inclusion part also was a bit a logical framework for PALMIS to work with. On policy, PALMIS at that time have absolutely no documentation mentioning disability. It was no process about disability, but we don't see that as a barrier because we say it will be an opportunity to create from scratch together policy to PALMIS to be able to be more inclusive. And we see also an opportunity on the business case because as PALMIS was already working with underserved people, it was a possibility to them to reach more people of their actual segment. It was not an external agenda. It was really part of their mission, and it will give us the proof that making financial institutions more inclusive is benefiting the people, but also the institution. And of course, because of this possibility of business keys was very clear, it also gives us a chance to prove replicability model with other financial institutions in the country. So at that time when we start, so once we decide to work with PALMIS, we start doing an in-depth diagnostic. It was not just doing the first diagnostic. Now we really go on working with the partner to understand every process. So here we do focus group interview with the staff, with the manager, so loan officer, to see how confident they were on the inclusion. How do they think that PALMIS tomorrow giving loan to people with disability? And here we see different mixed perception between loan officer. Half of them was, it's okay, it makes sense, and other was a bit more reluctant because they see person with disability as a high risk of repayments. We did survey with clients, actual clients of PALMIS. Actually, I will just go there because I think it's better to change the order. But we do a survey with clients of PALMIS who was person with disability, but also person without disability, to understand their journey with the experience working with PALMIS. Not specifically on the inclusion part, but what was the experience, what worked, what was the challenges they have on the way? What can the PALMIS can do differently to be able to compare the experience from the person with disability and person without disability? We do revision of documents, but we also, and this is the more important, we go on the branch of PALMIS. We observe all the process of the credit, from the first visit of the client, to the training of the client, to the payment of the loan, to the repayment process. So it was very important to be able to see and be here when this is happening, to be able to evaluate the barrier, the existing barrier, and what we will need to address after that. We did a focus group with disabled organizations because they are the ones on the field who know exactly the need of the future client of PALMIS. So it was very important to listen to them, to understand what are the main challenges and what can we do to make more accessible and more trustful the financial institution for the people with disability. And we did an accessibility audit of physical and communication environments. When people think accessibility, a lot of times they just think about going on the place. But it's much more complicated. It's all the documents you give to the person, it's all the visual, and it's also the attitude of the behavior of the loan officer, for example. If I speak very fast, it will be more complicated. I'm a bad example of that, I know. And in the diagnostic approach, so what we try to see is the policies and procedure. I say they didn't have any mention of disability, neither disaggregation of a person with disability. On the organizational culture, as I say, inclusion was mixed perception. Accessibility was not here. Some branches have just dared to go there. Or non-document was accessible, not information was coming to the population. And on the participation, because they were an organization working already with people with low income, but there were no link at all with organization working for people with disability. So when we finalize the whole diagnostic of PALMIS, we take action. No? So it was, we do that with different organizations. Sometimes you have a lot of time and you can go in deep. Now you are working with a small organization with not a lot of fun. So we need to see what is meaningful, what really we need to change to be able to make PALMIS inclusive. So first of all, we revised the credit criteria to remove indirect discrimination. It was obligatory to go to the branch. Limitation 1. So we take out this discrimination. It was, the repayment process was very complex, and 80% of our beneficiaries cannot benefit because of this. We do adaptation. We did different model of repayment method. We did awareness session using positive role model with disability. Because we have people who was a bit perplexed about the capacity of being a person with disability and a successful entrepreneur, we bring successful story to them to listen. And in one night for another, they just change their mind. And this is very important when we do awareness, not talking about theory, just making people meet each other and realize what they need to do. We train loan officers and social agents on disability inclusion. So we help them to have the tools to be more confident, to be able to give the service to a person with disability. We adapt documentation, group meeting for accessibility, and we collaborate with disability organizations to make the link between them. So this organization was the one also bringing the role model, but we make them supporting PALMIS also to reach new clients. Because after you have to reach, and to reach new clients, you need to have connection with this segment. So the result of this project at the beneficiary part, 196% with disability access credit, 84% report that their business generates profits, which is very high. And it's very important to understand that this income is reinvested in education, in health, in housing, and to make grow their businesses to can continue supporting the community. It increases the autonomy, the confidence, and the social recognition. Person with disability was not anymore seen as a dependent. They were seen as an economic actor. And this is probably the more important part of the result of this project. Here you have an example of Marie from Port-au-Prince. And she said, before I depend on my neighbor to survive. Now I live from my business. I was able to buy a table, more goods, and pay school fee for my daughter. We can see shifting from the dependence to just because I cannot access the finance to do my business. And it's important to see because also we need to prove the case to the financial institutions that making a business more inclusive benefit your business. It's not just benefiting the person. So for PALMIS, they expand and diversify their client base. More clients, more money. They increase staff confidence because the inclusion process with the staff we have done with them give them the confidence to attend people, but also give them more confidence in the work they were doing and were more satisfied with the organization itself. They have been recognized as a pioneer of inclusive microfinance and in Haiti, and one of the big learning for us also as HI in this project is we realize that improving the doing financial inclusion for persons with disability improve all the institution financial experience, all the segments, not just person with disability was more happy with Palmis. Everyone, because service was better, the communication was better, the process was clear, and finally it benefits to all of them. So some small lesson learned. We can do sometimes, we don't have to change all a building to make a service more inclusive. We can do small things and increasing it. And sometimes you just take out the criteria eligibility to people need to go to the branch to access the finance. You can already have some more clients. So we need to understand that not all organizations have the money to do all the change. We have to go step by step, but taking out some step is already improving the access you can give. Staff exposure and training quickly shift attitude. As I said before, you think something, you met the person, change your mind, and tomorrow you will act differently. Engaging of persons with disability answer relevance. If you don't understand the specific need of the target group on the place you work, of your future clients, it will be difficult to respond to them. So you need to partner with organizations who is working actually with these segments. And the accessibility improvement benefit everyone. I think this is the big thing, is like inclusion make all the services better. It's not just for a category of person. And just to finalize, this is my last, I think we're okay. So we have some project of financial inclusion, but we are not focusing on financial inclusion. I didn't put HI presentation before because it's a bit, it will be a bit complicated. But this methodology, so we improve it. It was 4 tools for approach. Now we have 6 categories. And we do that not just with financial institutions. We do that with organization, government, private sector actor, any sector, social organization, TVET. So we use the same methodology that we adapt on the context, on the actor we work with, to be able to make more inclusive different type of organization. And we developed from this one of the initial financial inclusion program, a methodology to improve the way we do it from this learning. And this we really realize, and we do a big project with Michelin, for example, in India, but we are able now to create from small to big projects, depending of how much the organization we work with can be engaged, and the finance we have to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophie. And I think that gave a really strong, thank you, yes. Thank you to Sophie for that explaining the methodology there that you use in HI, and also, I think, bringing out the impacts for people with disabilities and for the organization. So that's really great. And thank you to all our presenters. I think we've seen some really great examples there. So much, I think, that we can take out from that and learn, and that other financial services providers can use. So now I want to turn to the Q&A, and really, first of all, just to invite, I certainly have some questions I'd like to follow up, but I'd like to invite from the audience if you have any questions for our panelists. Yes, we have the lady in the red there, I think was the first.
Thank you. Hi, I'm actually going to read a question from one of our online participants. His name is Usman Ahmad Modibo, and he would like to know if any of your institutions have clients with mental health issues, such as autism, or do you only focus or mainly focus on physical disabilities? Thank you.
Great. That's a really great question. And, one of, I think, the big issues is including all peoples with disabilities. So would any of our panelists, I think, Luis, would you like to answer that?
We work with their families. We don't have clients that directly that have autism or that type of disability. But for those cases, we have a program with their families, so to help the family economy.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Lydia?
So from Opportunity International, that's one of the things that we try, like segmenting and profiling the people. So one of the tools that we are using, which is the Washington group questions, it helps us to break it down into the different type of disability that we are working with. So from us, I don't have it on top of my head, but it breaks it down to mental, physical, and all the different things that we work with. But I don't have specific example as to whether we have persons with those on the spectrum or with mental health. But what I know for sure is that there will be some, because we are working with both the persons with disability and also the family or the caregiver. So even if we are not working directly with somebody with mental health, maybe indirectly we are working with the family members to be able to support them.
Thank you. And Sophie, anything?
It will be actually the same response. We work with the caregiver also, so it happens that we also use the Washington Post, so we effectively do it, but I don't have a specific example.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the question. A question at the front here? Yeah.
Thanks. Patricia Richter, I work for the International Labour Organization. So everything that you said resonates very well with work that we do. Thank you so much for sharing the examples. Actually, I got really, when Alison, when you at the beginning mentioned that 75% of people with disability in developing countries are women. I was not aware of this figure, and it made me think, why is it more? I have some of my own explanations, but it would be interesting hearing from you what really is that reality that makes it be 75%. Because even when we walk in the streets of Kampala, I don't see 75% of disabled people that I see are being female. So there's really a big invisibility factor in there. So that would be one question. A second question, is there anything that as financial institutions you also get maybe even requirements or guidance from central banks that might even push you a little bit? Or do you see any possibility that there could be more push to actually advance in the inclusion there? And I like the example Uganda with Amphiu. I mean, this is a sector-wide activity that started some more than 10 years ago, and that could really push the needle a little bit. And the third question, well, I'm sure others also have questions, but we have 4 panelists just for ourselves. That's great. Huh? And the fourth question, you all mentioned the clients basically said, oh, you found us. Which I find a very striking comment, because normally the financial institution probably doesn't need to find the client, but the clients come to them. So by finding clients, obviously it's quite a cost in the business model. And while once a client is there, it's financially sustainable because it is a business case lending to them. I wonder what is that component of actually finding the client, and how do you integrate that into a overall sustainable business model, or if you think this definitely deserves grant components?
Okay, thank you very much, Patricia. So there's 3 different questions there.
Yeah.
Let me just try and address the first one quickly, and feel free to chip in for others. So in terms of women with disabilities, so there's a number of factors. So the prevalence of disability is higher amongst women in most countries. As you say, there's often not necessarily a visibility of that, but some of the factors that contribute to that, there's this strong link between disability, poverty, and lack of access to services. And women, those things in general impact women as a result of their gender more than men. Access to healthcare is often an issue that is highly correlated with disability or lack of access to healthcare. Lack of income opportunity, again, is a result of disability, but also can be a cause of disability, poverty. And also, women actually, on average, do live longer, and there's a strong correlation between disability and age. So, older women, obviously, are, the prevalence of disability will be higher in those older age groups as well. I don't know if there's anything you want to add?
In our case, regarding that question, is because we mainly work with women. So we have 92% of our clientele that are women, so that's why, very natural.
Just maybe to add, when we see, I think it was very interesting to say when I'm on the street, I don't see that women, but because they are not in the streets, they are even more excluded. Yeah. And this is why also we have sometimes this sensation that person with physical disabilities that we see less men than women, is because women are even more excluded on the social participation, and which lead to this lack of view.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The invisibility is always a key factor, and that is really why we talk about the stigma attached to it. So they tend to hide them. And even if you go into a family and you are doing an evaluation, you want to know about the people or the people living in the house. So most often they don't even talk about that person that is hiding in that room. So for us, that was why it was really important to do that community sensitization, so that people can be much aware of some of these challenges and the invisibility, and making sure that they are visible in almost all the development work that we are doing as well. Yeah.
And I think that leads a bit into your third question, so I'll go with that now, about finding clients. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know if you want to expand on that side as well.
So for Opportunity International, in terms of, what I was basically trying to say is that it changed the way we do our outreach in terms of reaching out to the clients. So we are kind of using the two-pronged approach. So if we are able to target the disability inclusion organization, we tend to work with them, the union, I talk about the National Union of Disability. So we go to them, sell the products to them, and for people to then be aware of even that. Because as you can see from the story, he thought that our product was not meant for persons with disabilities, so it was really important for us to take the product to them to say it is for everyone and you are as part. And once they get to know the product and they become part, like Joseph, then they become like an ambassador, so they themselves then kind of cascade it, and then by word of mouth they tell other people as well, so they can also approach us. So for example, in this work that we did, we worked with we started with a few disability VSLs, and they, by word of mouth, also sold it to other members. So you be in the office and they'll come there and they also want to come and open an account and things like that. So a two-pronged approach, that's what we're doing.
Great, thank you. Anything to add there?
In our case, we were working with financial inclusion, just financial inclusion. So never realized the other opportunities that were there in terms of products. We never thought on water solutions provision before the stoplight. We never thought on health services, and we never thought on working with people with disabilities. So when our credit officer went to those houses, they just passed literally over any person with disability landing in the floor, because it wasn't in her or his portfolio, because we have not any institutional service in place that they can deliver to people with disability. And because in their limited minds, because they were not educated, they thought that people with disability, they do not perform as a client. So that was really why we changed and how we changed.
And just to add that, for us, to be able to embed this one. So now it's more and more becoming part of the business plan for Opportunity International Bank, and even for staff target groups, so that you are much aware, trying not to exclude anybody within the portfolio. So we have to be a bit more intentional in the approach that we take. Other than that, we continue to perpetuate our own biases and exclude more people as we go along. So it's part of the staff awareness creation and the incentive package that we come out with.
Yeah. And that intentionality you mentioned comes top down in organizations. So you have to put it in your business plan. You have to put it in the bonus plans of your office managers and the bonus plans of your credit officers, so to make it visible and intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answers there, I think. And sorry, the second question...
It's regarding the banks,
the
central bank.
Would you like to take that?
In our case, the central bank never mentioned a thing like that. And please consider that the central bank has a special unit that is focused on financial inclusion, trying to promote financial inclusion. But in Paraguay, I think they don't think this is part of financial inclusion.
I think for our case, it's very important because we work with the Association of Microfinance. They've been really encouraging us, and I know one colleague of us, Margaret, who has disability inclusion work in Uganda, is already part of the national, what do you call it, Tamsin? My colleague in Tamsin live in, so they have like a committee that's trying to drive disability inclusion. So we had a national campaign on TV where we were part of speaking into it in terms of coming out. And I think they actually adapted Opportunity International's disability inclusion, the drama that I talked about, so they can actually show it within the national television so others can see how they can integrate disability inclusion. So again, for us, partnership, again, is really important, both from the government side and also at the local side as well. It's really important, yeah.
Anything to add from your side?
No, I think it's something I mentioned in the presentation, but I think we need more business case to prove the case of inclusion is benefit for them, because they just think about money, no? So at some point we need also to, I think sometimes when we work with the organization, with persons with disabilities, being able also to help them to have better conversation between actors. Because it's very difficult, even in the development sector, when you just work, you work, we all understand the same, we all have the same concept, etc., and you work with a bank, a big bank, you need to transform the way you talk to them. And you need to talk to them with business case. You need to give the proof to be able to do the shifts. And without that, you will not be able to do it. And I think we need to do more and more and more to be able to shift. And I think one of the good things that the development sector and the private sector more and more are working together. And at some point, I hope still, we will go there.
Yeah. So thank you very much. And I'd just like to add to that as well, that at BFFI, we are partnering with the Alliance for Financial Inclusion, which is a network of central banks and regulators. And there are a number of central banks and regulators in different countries who have actually fairly recently issued disability inclusion regulations and frameworks. So it is something, and there is quite an appetite. So, you know, but I strongly believe it's a very important factor ultimately to push the financial institutions as well, and not only the ones with a social mission. So. Well, I think, I mean, fascinating discussion, and thank you for those questions. I think we are running out of time now, unfortunately. It'd be great to continue the discussion. And please, if you do have any more questions, feel free to come and approach any of us after the session, and we'd be happy to address them. So now I'm just going to do a very quick wrap-up, and I'll go quite quickly through these. Firstly, was some of the key takeouts, and I think from all of those presentations we can see that disability inclusion isn't just a one-off project. You know, it is a journey that requires transformational change, and that needs commitment from the leadership, it needs engagement and awareness of staff at all levels, it needs a structured approach to assessment and action planning that's aligned to the goals and strategies of the organization, the wider goals. It's, you know, you can't necessarily do everything all at once, but as I think, as we said, what you can do is start by small steps that can actually have quite a big impact for inclusion. We brought out as well, I think a couple of times, the importance of data collection, both to understand the needs of the clients, but also to set targets for staff and to monitor progress. And that, you know, embedding that data collection as part of your standard systems, performance management and reporting systems. Targeted outreach, I think, was very clear in all of the case studies, so partnering with organizations of people with disabilities to reach people with disabilities in the community and to better understand their needs. And also partnering with disability support organizations who can provide technical expertise. And in terms of outcomes, I mean, I think we saw for people with disabilities and their families and caregivers, you know, through financial inclusion, increased their livelihood opportunities and their economic participation, but also wider benefits in terms of increased autonomy and financial independence, enhanced self-esteem and confidence, and important, you know, to look at that as improvements to the quality of their life in multiple dimensions, not just in terms of income. And also, I think a point that came out clearly as well, that it actually resulted in wider social inclusion and a change of attitude from people in the community to people with disabilities. So I think that illustrates how financial inclusion really starts to address some of those underlying factors that drive, you know, the social exclusion of people with disabilities. And for the financial service providers, they benefited, you know, from expanding their client base and taking on what we saw were profitable and, you know, and loyal customers. So the business benefit there. But also, again, wider benefits, you know, that through inclusive design, it actually enhanced customer experience for all clients. Also, employee engagement and access, you know, through employing with people with disabilities to a wider talent pool. Compliance with regulatory requirements, and also brand and reputation improvement, and that all adds up to long-term sustainability. So finally, I want to share some information and resources that can help other financial services providers on their disability inclusion journey. So with BFFI, Fundación Paraguay, we've worked together to document the case study of Fundación Paraguay in more detail, and that's available. You can scan the QR code, or it will be on Fundación Paraguay's website. And you can also find more information about the Poverty Stoplight methodology on the website there. Opportunity International have recently published a number of inclusive finance and accessibility tools for financial service providers. And these cover a whole range of issues from inclusive communication to branch accessibility assessments, workplace accessibility assessments, and collecting disability and using disability data, including gender and disability data and the intersectionality there. So those are really great practical tools, and you can find them at the link shown. And I think Sophie mentioned the methodologies used by HI. So HI and BFFI are partnering together. We have these tools and methodologies for disability inclusion assessment at organizational level, action planning, and also for technical support for implementation. So we're looking to partner with FSPs, so please feel free to come and talk to us if that's something that we can support with. And also on BFFI's website, we have a resources section, so there's more resources on that website as well. Again, I've shown these links, but please feel free to come and ask us for more information. And finally, BFFI is looking to set up a disability inclusive finance community of practice as a global platform for stakeholders from the disability and inclusive finance sectors to come together for knowledge sharing, resource sharing, you know, looking at amplifying the voices and experiences of people with disability in accessing finance, learning, collaboration, and innovation to create solutions and overcome the barriers. Again, there's a QR code there, or come and ask me for more information. So finally, just to say a very big thank you to everyone who attended here today and from the questions that you asked, for that discussion, to e-MFP for the opportunity to speak, and most of all to our 3 panelists who gave such great case studies and I think have really shared a lot of really useful insights and learnings with us. So thank you so much to all 3. Thank you.